Hello, I'm Sharif Gubran, and I'm working on a project titled the 2050 Sustainable Education Campus. I'm an architect teaching at the Department of Architecture, and I'm working with Dr. Heba Deghedi from the Department of Education.
Hello, I'm Heba Deghedi, Professor of Education, and I'm actually sharing with you some aspects related to the project that we're working on together with the Department of Architecture.
And this is a project that's funded by the Bartlett Fund here at AUC, and we're collaborating with CLT, Dr. Hoda Mustafa, and the Office of the University Architect, Dr. Khalid Tarabia.
The project started some time ago where you tried to actually bring in together various sustainable development goals. One of them was SDG number 4, related to the quality of education, in addition to the SDG number 11, related to sustainable cities.
The whole idea of the project came about when we saw that there's a lot of research that's being done about the future of sustainable education in developed nations. However, there's a very big gap on the availability of information and data about this topic in developing countries. So we really wanted to launch this project to work here at AUC to start to envision what the future of education for sustainable development can be for Egypt and AUC.
The whole idea was to break the silos between the different disciplines and bring these two areas together. The project was really fascinating. I've been surprised with the different inputs from the various stakeholders and how student voices were being documented with their various ideas.
Hi, my name is Rita Gabriel. I'm an undergrad architecture student currently in my 4th year. I would like to talk about the interdisciplinarity between architecture and education. At a first glance, or as a first impression, I thought that these two fields would be completely separated from each other and they have no relation to each other or correlation anyway. However, after researching, I discovered that it's very hard to draw a separation line between these two fields. Actually, I also discovered that we can draw a line between architecture and any other field. They're very closely related in some aspects and still are separated in others. And that really stood out to me.
The project has two main milestones. The first is looking at 2030. So this is in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. And then the next step is looking beyond the 2030 agenda into 2050 and beyond to start to understand what the future might hold about this topic. The idea of the project is really about creating a multi-stakeholder process to gather information, analyze information, and be inclusive of ideas that are happening here at AUC and other campuses around Egypt.
To envision the classroom in 2050, we thought of how we can actually bring together the pedagogies related to sustainability, the curricula with its various content, and how that can lead envisioning the space, the learning spaces in higher education institutions. We've seen some examples that are happening elsewhere around the world, and we wanted AUC to take the lead on that.
The project aimed to create a multi-stakeholder approach where we get together teachers, educators, researchers, administrators from different universities to start to understand and map the current approaches and the current activities that are happening around sustainability in Egyptian campuses.
As a professor of education, what I've thought of is getting students, particularly at the master's level, to work and think about applications we've been talking about so many times inside the classrooms, to think about how they can do that in action. One of the things is actually getting these students to work with the architecture students to envision how these two disciplines come together. The idea of interdisciplinarity, as we try to envision it even further, is related to many of the various theories of learning, particularly with the constructivists. And the way that we think about it forward is actually to make sure that students have a voice, have a choice, and are engaged.
From that map, we started to envision and work together with our very energetic team of undergraduate and graduate student researchers to put together a set of activities to envision what could be the next steps in our Egyptian campuses in terms of sustainability and sustainable education.
Talking about interdisciplinarity is useful but seeing it happen in action is totally a different level.
My group and I were very proud of our final outcome during the workshop. The collaboration between educational students and architectural students was very fun and innovative, because for me as an architectural student, I don't really have a background about educational design. But actually thinking about how people go through the space and feel during classes or any educational facility was very interesting to think about.
I think the main takeaway, or the main thing that I think affected me the most, was the fact that I got to work with education students as well as other design years and architecture students from these years. And it was a fruitful experience in the fact that I got to see how the curriculum aspect and the more syllabus-based aspect can influence spaces and vice versa, and how they can work together.
I'm Ayal Khouli. I'm an MA student in International and Comparative Education. I've actually never encountered the concept of education for sustainable development. I was very lucky to have this opportunity to be an RA on this project with Dr. Hiba Daghizi. And for the first half of the project, or even more, I was the only RA from the education side, which was a very, very enriching experience. The architect students, I learned a lot from them.
You can also think about this project as part of the higher education social responsibility. And we are taking the lead on envisioning the future of classrooms in 2050 and even beyond that.
In terms of process, the project really functioned in terms of creating this platform for collecting and analyzing and working with different stakeholders across universities in Egypt, and in terms of stakeholders here at AUC. So we started off, of course, with some desk research to understand more what has been written and what's around in terms of knowledge on this topic globally, but also in Egypt, looking at a series of mega trends that researchers think will shape the future of education globally.
So we started off with one workshop. We had a number of institutions represented in this first workshop, and we shared with them the various megatrends and their views of what we need to prioritize in our educational systems.
In this full day of activities, we were able to really map some of the priorities and some of the critical uncertainties, if we can think of them that way, about the future of sustainable education across Egyptian campuses.
And we complemented this with different visits, site visits to campuses in Egypt to see what they've been doing related to education sustainability in their own campuses, whether it's related to their courses, whether it's related to even the structure of the campus and the various facilities that they also have.
Once a vision of this future critical issues were arrived to, we held another workshop here at AUC, inviting administrators, faculty, and students to work together on trying to scale down these future trends that we observed across Egypt into the AUC ecosystem.
And again, the outcome was really fascinating, and we even managed to get the students to work with us hand in hand.
And from there, we developed a brief, a design brief, if we think about it that way, that we put out to groups of students that were composed of architecture and education students working together to imagine for us and with us what the future of AUC learning spaces and curricula for sustainable development could look like in terms of how we interact, how we work with students, how students work together, how courses and different disciplines come together in interdisciplinary setups. What was also very interesting is that our students worked on defining for us some key principles, including interdisciplinarity, including this notion of collaborative learning in terms of spaces, and a mix of virtuality and reality or physicality in all of our courses. And ending with almost proposals for what this future might look like. And all this process was really driven by this multi-stakeholder approach. And key to all of it was the integration of our students and this interdisciplinary activity that happens between the education and architectural students that gave really meaning to the outcomes of our work.
AUC is really fortunate to provide us with such an opportunity, and hopefully will be leading this particular project elsewhere, even beyond the AUC campus.